Good afternoon. I'm going to address two issues today. First is a policy announcement as part of our ongoing efforts as the Conservative Party to try to propose some policies to fix Canada's broken immigration system, and then I'm going to discuss an additional amendment to Bill C-12 that we'll be proposing. So, as part of our ongoing release of Conservative policies to fix Canada's broken immigration system, today I'm calling for the Liberals to return to in-person citizenship ceremonies. During the last general election, Conservatives campaigned on a platform of restoring the value of Canadian citizenship by ending the Liberal practice of conducting citizenship ceremonies virtually, and we reiterate that call today. Last year, over half of the people who became Canadian citizens did so by clicking a box online. That's crazy. There is no way to justify this practice, and with support for immigration at an all-time low, returning to inclusive, nation-building ceremonies is a no-brainer. In-person citizenship ceremonies are the essential unifying bedrock of Canada's civic life. Just as with marriage, these are sacred events befitting the responsibilities and obligations taken on. Swearing the oath of citizenship in front of an official should be upheld as an integral part of committing to the responsibilities that come along with being Canadian. For the last several years, as they embraced their post-national ideology, the Liberals rejected every opportunity to restore in-person ceremonies. Justice Minister Sean Fraser even defended virtual ceremonies, saying the practice could be easier for bureaucrats to manage. Conservatives believe it is time to end one-click citizenship and restore the full dignity and communal significance of in-person ceremonies for every new Canadians. I'd also now like to address Bill C-12. I am disappointed that the Liberals gutted common sense amendments that were passed in collaboration with colleagues from other parties during the committee stage of Bill C-12. I think it's really important to note that the Conservatives did something that really resembled work here. We put forward many proposals that I think that the Liberals will have to undertake eventually, proposals that have been put forward by experts and people across the country. And again, it was nice to see some cross-party collaboration with colleagues in different opposition parties to get some amendments forward. But again, we also saw the Liberals try to remove these, even the ones that we passed, through procedural tactics in the House. So that's disappointing. However, I have also given notice of an additional amendment to Bill C-12, which would ensure that the Liberals cannot use extraordinary powers in Part 7 to mass change, extend, or cancel visas or permanent residence cards in the bill, particularly to mass extend temporary work visas. During the debate on C-12, officials were unable to provide concrete examples of how they intended to use the sweeping powers in Part 7 of the bill. As such, Conservatives successfully amended the bill to include a requirement for the Liberals to report to Parliament on how they use these powers, and for the Minister to come to committee when they are used, as well as a clause to clarify that the Liberals could not use the power to mass convert temporary residents into permanent residents. However, this morning, a news story showed that the Liberals missed a whopping 38% of temporary residents in its last census. This breaking news compounds a story from earlier this fall, which described how well over 1 million temporary residents have expiring visas. Last spring, the Liberals admitted they had no plan to get these non-citizens to leave once their visa expired, and for months, Liberals have resisted Conservative efforts to disclose entry and exit information, raising questions about the true accuracy of exits. And worse, in recent days, an operation the Liberals undertook to speed up citizenships to influence the outcome of the 1995 Quebec referendum also came to light. These issues, combined with the lack of clarity from officials on how they plan to use powers in Part 7 of Bill C-12, has resulted in Conservatives giving notice of an additional amendment to C-12, which would prevent the Liberals from using these powers to mass extend all types of temporary resident visas. Canadians need reassurances that those who are supposed to leave on expired temporary resident visas actually do. And frankly, the same goes for provinces whose healthcare systems and classrooms have come under great pressure after a decade of Liberals' mass immigration. If the Liberals have no plans to use the powers in C-12 to mass extend temporary resident visas, then they will support this amendment. Thank you.
Can I just ask where you plan to make this amendment, given that it's been through its committee stage? And I gather that the Speaker ruled out some of the amendments as not permitted. Could you just run by which of the amendments that passed in committee still stand, and where do you, as I said, where do you plan to make this amendment, given that it's been through committee stage?
Can I just say I love this question because it's a technical procedural question, and it's so rare that we get to do this. So we proposed over 30 amendments. Some were brought into scope in committee through support with the Bloc Québécois. Right now, my understanding, what's still on the House is a quarterly deportation report to Parliament, an amendment to ensure that if an asylum claimant returns to their home country while the claim is pending, that their claim would be terminated, that the IRB would have the ability to set standard processes for terminating claims for ineligibility if they reach the board, requiring officers to have to give notice of an ineligible claim, automatic termination of asylum claims if they are ineligible, some pretty common sense stuff. And then with regard to Part 7 particularly, there were 2 amendments that we moved on the floor at committee. One to, as I mentioned in my remarks, ensure that the Liberals couldn't use the Part 7 powers to convert en masse temporary resident visas to permanent residents. Now, you asked the question about admissibility. So first of all, the Speaker can't do anything without Parliament initiating it. So the Liberals did go out of their way to gut amendments that opposition parties had already agreed to. And, you see the government House leader and stuff talking about, Parliament not working, but the government made no efforts to talk to opposition parties before they took this. And here's the reality. The NDP have also signaled that they don't plan to support this bill. So they need one or both of the Bloc and the Conservatives. So, it's a little arrogant on their part to just assume that they can, act like a majority, gut these amendments without working with opposition parties, especially when they're constructive amendments and based on witness testimony. So in terms of the amendment that we're proposing today, I have given notice during the House process of report stage. Again, this, part of a minority parliament is being able to amend bills when new information comes to light. So again, we had this story this morning about the 38% not counted in the census. We have stories about different premiers talking about the impact of uncounted temporary residents on their healthcare, their education systems, asking for more financial support. And then then there was a story in the Journal de Montreal about the Liberals using these powers way back in the day these types of powers to influence the outcome of a major turning point in Canadian history. So I think it's prudent that we amend an amendment that came in from committee to just additionally clarify that they can't use these to mass extend temporary resident visas, because those aren't numbers that are accounted for in the levels, right? So a bit of a technical explanation, but a welcome question.
Can I ask you about temporary foreign workers? I know the party wants to see that program abolished. We've just published a story about Tim Hortons lobbying MPs and government for more than the last year to actually have more flexibility in the program, in some cases increase the cap back to 20%, also to have visas renewed in a smoother fashion when a permit's about to expire. What do you think of these asks? I know that they met, or on paper at least it looks like they tried meeting with some of your party's MPs as well.
Here's the reality. We have a, 20% youth unemployment rate nationally right now, and the temporary foreign worker program has played a big role in removing entry-level job opportunities for youth. I've posted many times about how entry-level jobs, particularly at fast food restaurants, we see these requests for LMIAs. And I'm sorry, I can't believe that there aren't Canadians across the country that won't do these jobs. I think that is a canard, like a myth that has been propagated by industry, who has used, the Liberals' policy of just importing low-wage labor, that it's not fair to the people coming to Canada either, right? Because they're essentially indentured to these jobs. The UN has described the program as akin to slavery. And where I think we should be focused, and the reason why I think it's so important to abolish the TFW program, is that the government should be focused on skills training, labor mobility across the country, and restoring that first opportunity for young Canadians. So our position stands, and the industry will have to adapt, but that's where, the conversation with lobbyists, with people who want to keep the status quo should be, okay, we have 20% youth unemployment. How do we get those kids into these jobs? How do we train up the skills? How do we get people to move across the country? And I think that's where the smart betting long on Canadian kids and betting long on the Canadian economy conversation should be.
I wanted to ask you on just on a separate subject that do the Conservatives have any concern about a Canadian company supplying light armored vehicles to ICE in the U.S.?
I'm not familiar with that story right now, and I'll direct the questions to my colleague, who's the shadow minister for that file.
Could you explain the rationale behind the vote at the committee yesterday? And why would you want to hear, what would you want to hear from Jean Chrétien?
Oh, yes. So you're referring to the motion that my colleague in the bloc had to. So what happened for folks is that the Bloc Québécois did put forward a motion to summon Mr. Chrétien and others to committee in response to a story about the Liberals using the immigration process to potentially or allegedly alter the outcome of a big moment in Canadian history. I'm going to direct your attention back to what I said today. So we now have a bill in front of Parliament that is asking for more powers for the government to be able to alter immigration documents. And I think that the story was sort of like another red flag for me to make sure that the powers in that bill are clarified so that the Liberals can't use them to extend temporary resident visas. So I think that it'll be a very interesting meeting and one that I'm eager to take part in.
It's unlikely that this government will support this amendment that you're putting forward because, you don't have the numbers that you do at committee level, and the Bloc has already signaled they're going to support this bill. If you don't get that change in, are the Conservatives going to support the way, this bill as amended, as it stands right now?
So I think it's important for the Liberals to understand that this is a minority parliament. It's not a majority parliament. I think that it was actually a really refreshing committee experience to go through the process of amending a bill, trying to strengthen it. But as I said with this, there's so many issues for the government right now. The story today about them undercounting temporary residents by 38%, the fact that there's over 1.2 million expiring or imminently expired or imminently expiring temporary resident visas right now. It is incumbent on the government to reassure Canadians that they have a plan for temporary residents to leave. And that's because a temporary resident permit is exactly that. It's temporary. And so the Liberals should clarify, even if it's just to the provinces, to say we have no intent on using these powers to mass extend visas when there isn't a plan for healthcare, jobs, or housing to keep up. So I would like to have a note of optimism and believe that the Liberals, hope springs eternal, right? If they have no intent on using these powers to mass extend temporary visas, then they should have no problem clarifying or voting in favor of this amendment. So I'm going to choose to be optimistic, but I think it'll be very telling if the Liberals vote against this. I have anecdotally heard some stories that this could be something that's on the table. But if the Liberals vote against this, what everybody should take it as is that they do plan to use the powers to mass extend temporary visas. And then they're going to have to immediately talk to the provinces. They're going to immediately have to talk to people who are thinking about housing supply and healthcare capacity, even primary education, right? We can't keep bringing in so many people that type of basic social and economic infrastructure can't keep up. So I'm going to choose to be an optimist and hope that the Liberals vote in favor of this. But if I don't, I guess I'll be talking to you guys again in a few days.
Question, which is, in committee, the Liberals proposed an amendment which was supported, restricting the use of these powers, for example, to fraud, very much narrowing down how it could be used. And looking at the wording, it doesn't seem that what you're suggesting actually falls within those criteria. And the other thing, Michelle, is that you put down an amendment in committee to stop them using it to offer permanent residence, which I believe passed. So why are you doing this with hindsight? And are you not satisfied with the narrowing down of that amendment?
So first of all, my amendment is in a different part of the bill from that, and I'm not satisfied, based on committee testimony, that what the Liberals proposed will affect this particular situation. And I think given that it's in different parts of the bill, that would be correct. But hindsight, I mean, we're in the middle of debate. And I know it's weird, right? Because the state of a bill is not a foregone conclusion. We're actually doing what parliamentarians should be doing. New information came up since the committee strategy. And, I'm looking at these numbers and I'm going, maybe we should additionally clarify this, right? And I know it's weird because you don't often see this happen in Parliament, but the outcome of this bill is not a foregone conclusion. There has been a robust amendment strategy. So we'll see what happens in debate. But the Liberals should, if they want to reassure Canadians, they should support this common sense amendment. Thank you.